Hey guys, Virginia here. I would like to welcome you to the COLAB, the Central Ontario Laboratory. We are here to educate, inspire, and activate. Welcome to the COLAB.
Hey there, I'm Virginia. This is the hair that lives on top, and today we have a very special guest.
And I'm Jamie Doran. I'm the Executive Director, Research, Innovation, Entrepreneurship at Georgian College. So I'm going to introduce our special guest. His name is Max Mirho. He has a really cool channel on YouTube and a website to go along with that. It's called Entreprenerd, and we're going to learn all about that today. And Max is actually our first cross-border guest. So
Yes.
How cool is that?
So
all right,
exciting.
So let's get started. Virginia, I'll just pass it over to you, and then maybe we can get to learn about Max a little bit.
Yes, so Max actually reached out to us, which was a really cool thing to happen. We checked out his content, and it's pretty darn amazing. He does these amazing live streams, and I'd like Max to just introduce himself and say hello, and then we're going to jump into a couple fun questions.
Heck yeah, hello. My name is Max, obviously. I run a show on the internet called Entreprenerd. It's a whole lot of fun. Basically, every week I build a tiny little startup. I actually just got off a show recently. I do it on Twitch. It's a live stream, and in like 90 minutes every week, I build a tiny little startup to make entrepreneurship education a little bit more accessible to the rest of everybody. Right? Basically, that's it. That's what I do.
Wow,
It's
we got
so
a lot
exciting.
of questions.
Yes, because as you know, we are a show that is not only about research and social innovation, but we also hit it hard on the entrepreneurship.
That is correct.
Let's talk about why entrepreneurship.
Absolutely, yeah. My dad's an entrepreneur. My mom is currently kind of being an entrepreneur. Like my family is relatively in that kind of space, so it made sense that I was pushed in that direction. Initially, I just wanted to go into business because my dad was a lawyer. It made sense. I was relatively social. I liked, and I didn't really know fully what I wanted to do yet. So business was broad enough that I didn't have to commit to something. But entrepreneurship seems nice. But the thing that really caught my attention, I really only got into it like halfway through my college career. The thing that caught my attention was the people in it. I don't know, like everybody that I met that was building something was this very specific like type of person. In the sense that like you have an idea and they're like immediately like, oh my gosh, we have to go after that right now. Or like, that's a great idea. That solves such a big problem in the world. They're always looking to like fix things and make the world better.
Right.
Whether that's for profit or otherwise. And I really kind of fell in love with the type of people that area is surrounded. And that's what really kind of pushed me to build more stuff. So
That's cool. And so then when it got to creating the internet show, how did that all happen?
yeah, halfway through my college career, like end of my sophomore year, I wasn't taking any like entrepreneurship courses yet. I was in the entrepreneurship program, business with a focus on entrepreneurship, business degree. But I wasn't taking any actual entrepreneurship courses yet, and that was really frustrating to me. So I went out. It's no fault of their own. They just had a lot of business curriculum. They wanted me to make sure that I got through first. No flack on the university.
It's like basics, learn your basics, and then jump into it.
Exactly, it makes total sense. But I was a little bit annoyed. I was a little bit frustrated because I wasn't learning in like the specifics yet. So I went out and I emailed a bunch of alumni from a local university that were running companies currently. I said, hey,
Cool.
I have absolutely no idea what the heck I'm doing. Can we sit down for like half an hour and you can tell me like how you do things? And like 2 out of the 3 people that I initially emailed got back to me and they're like, sure, let's get some coffee.
That's so amazing.
It was great. It was like mind-blowingly scary for me at the time. But I ended up doing that like 100 more times over the next year and a half. I interviewed over 100 founders and CEOs of small startups. And I just asked them all the same questions.
We have some mentors that would just be like, this right here, this is it. This is the person. This is the kind of entrepreneur that we've been looking for.
Yeah, we always tell our clients is like go out and talk to other companies in your space, even other spaces, and make friends with CEOs and presidents of companies if you can, and learn as much as you can from them. So the fact that you did that right at the very beginning of your journey is really cool.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And that kind of got me the introduction to what entrepreneurship is and how it's about solving problems, not like being rich and making a bunch of money like everybody on the internet says it is. It gave me a little bit more realistic of an understanding of what entrepreneurship is. after like a year and a half of just, well, like after a year of doing that, I was eventually like, maybe I could build something myself finally.
Ooh,
I wish I
yeah.
started earlier than that.
Yeah.
And I started experimenting. I think the first thing that I built was a little newsletter to connect all these companies that I was talking to with students that I knew to help find internship possibilities.
That's
or
so
job
cool.
Hmm.
I got like 3 kids hired as interns at local companies, and it was like mind-blowingly exciting for me.
Ah,
It's called YesPGH, Young Entrepreneurs Society of Pittsburgh, and I still have the domain name. But I built that as a newsletter in like a weekend. It took me no time at all to whip this thing up because it's
Yeah.
a very
Mhm.
simple business model, right? It's just me making content. Um, and the speed at which I whipped that up and how much I learned from just building that tiny little newsletter, like exploded my mind with like, oh my gosh, this is possible. This is real. Like I
yes.
can build things, no problem. Like there's so many other things that I could build. And I got obsessed with just like creating things.
Yeah.
I tried building like 7 things that next summer and none of them got done, putting myself too thin. But eventually I was already posting on the internet about business things that I was learning generally in the interviews that I was having. And I thought, what if I made a video about how I build different businesses, right? And maybe if I document myself building these things and messing up and screwing up and figuring it out along the way, people can learn as much as I'm learning with me.
Yes.
And I did like 50 videos on that, 2 per week for like almost like half a year-ish. Eventually people were like, you should try live streaming. And I was like, that's a stupid idea. And then 6 people told me to live stream in like 1 month. And I was like, all right, fine. And so I tried it and I loved it. And that's just how it's been for the past like year and a half. So
That's amazing.
Wow.
That is a great like entrepreneurial beginning story where you started small and then you had the bug, you got hooked and you were like, I can do this. That's awesome.
So it's when you're doing these kinds of things, it's hard to grow your audience. So, how did your audience form and how are you planning on growing it?
yeah. So my audience is still relatively small right now. I have a few dedicated people that are really into what I do, which is really all you need to start, especially. But I've been doing this content for about like over 2 years, right? I have like 10,000 followers on LinkedIn ish, which is like fine, but it's hard to convert out of LinkedIn. It's a very interesting space. I'm
Yes. But
making
that's still
content.
10,000 followers on
Yeah, that's
LinkedIn.
great.
Yeah, it is still, yes. People, it is like, it's good verification that people like what I'm making, right? Which is great. I have a good number of followers, a few hundred on Twitch, a few hundred on YouTube, around like 1,500 on Instagram, some on TikTok. I have a bunch, like I have a decent audience spread across a bunch of different platforms, and that's fine. And that's just from making content, right? Um, the It's weird because the way that I usually recommend people initially find an audience is, first of all, you should focus on one platform. I focused on LinkedIn first, and that's why I have all those audience members there. You should focus where you think your audience hangs out the most. Initially, like business content, I thought LinkedIn might be the best, right? Although people say Twitter, but yeah, I don't know. But yeah, focus on one place. Absolutely. Be consistent with content. Of course, create that. I have a few little hacks for creating consistent content because creating content is actually genuinely very hard. I'm sure you're aware. It's
Yeah,
it's
we
very
know that for
difficult.
sure. We try
Yeah.
hard to be
Yeah.
original each week, and we're still going strong, and so are you. So that's great.
Yeah, so I figured out a couple of strategies to make it a little bit easier on myself. Fine. So consistent content, great. But the last thing is like, to advertise yourself. First, of course, it's going to be your friends and family, and they're going to hopefully share it with their friends and family. Great.
Yeah.
That's only going to get you so far, probably, especially if you don't have a large network like I did when I started. And then the next thing that I'd recommend is honestly just like run a few pay-per-click ads on yourself, experiment with that, like put like $50 into it, see what happens, see how it
Right.
functions,
Interesting.
see what the acquisition cost is for a new follower. And I have like streams on that if anybody doesn't know like how to do that kind of stuff. And
Awesome.
then influencers also really help a ton. So just
Yeah,
go
of
after
course.
somebody similar in your space, try to make a relationship. Somebody small, like only like a few thousand followers, not somebody huge, right? You're never gonna get to them. But talk to them, say, hey, I absolutely love your content. It's part of what inspired me. Probably it is.
Yep.
I would love if we could talk, maybe partner in some way, and maybe just make a couple pieces of content together. And then it'll help you get started a ton more than probably running ads or anything else, because they're exactly the audience members you should go after.
Yeah, that's great
Amazing.
advice.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
usually what I do.
So we were talking about your streaming, and what are you using when you're building your websites, and like what kind of programs are you using? Because I think the students would find that really interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. the tools that I use, and they're really popular on Twitter, and they call them like no code tools. Basically, if you think of something like Squarespace or Wix, those are the really popular ones, right?
For sure.
These are just simple little website builders, right? And they allow
Mm-hmm.
you to build a website without HTML, CSS, JavaScript, all this fancy like coding languages and all this jazz.
Yeah.
There are hundreds of others, and I mean hundreds. I have a giant list. I think it's at like 450
Holy
different tools
cow.
right now. And I can share that list. I'm happy to share that list if you want to share
Yeah,
that with
sure. We'll
anybody.
put it in
Um,
the comments there.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I built a giant list on Airtable, but uh, there are a ton of different tools. Actually, on the stream right before this, I was using a tool called Adalo, and Adalo is one of my favorite tools. Actually, it's a very simple app builder
Mm-hmm.
that lets me build like mobile apps that I can publish on the App Store. It lets me
Mm-hmm.
build web apps like two-sided platforms, marketplaces. I could rebuild something like Airbnb where people can post their own things, and like it's I can rebuild most of whatever I want and most business models in terms of digital prototypes at least. Really, really easy, really, really quickly, probably for free, and without learning code or anything fancy. At the most that I need to spend is like a week learning a new tool. Um, yeah, so no code, and I do that because I don't want to like exclude any. Like if I had to learn programming, first of all, I'm garbage at programming, but second of all, if I had to learn something like programming, that's excluding everybody that doesn't know programming, right?
Yep.
It's just me typing words on a screen, and nobody knows what it means. Like that's what I feel when I watch people program. Um, so I tried to like make the tools that I use as accessible and simple and basic as possible.
Yeah.
So anybody that hops on, even if they're like a high schooler or a middle schooler, can say like, "Oh, that makes sense," right?
Mm-hmm.
To some
That's
degree.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And I really like that that accessibility aspect that you just mentioned there. That's super important, especially if we have a bunch of students who are entrepreneurship students and they don't know how to code and they don't know how to build things. Knowing that there are these free apps out there for them to use is going to be like a huge hand out to them.
Yeah, I'm happy to share as many of these tools as you want. I like
Sweet.
half of the content that I produce on the internet is about these no-code tools. So, heck yeah.
So you bring up something that's on my mind all the time these days, and that is like, if you want to learn something, pretty much almost all knowledge is at your fingertips if you're willing to go and get it, right? There's so much on the internet. In the olden days, back when I was, your age, that you couldn't do that. If you wanted to learn something, you definitely had to go into a program, take a course. Now you can take all these courses, whether they're formal or informal, online through YouTube is pretty popular, but there are many other platforms. More sophisticated ones now than just a YouTube one. But why do you think that's happening? Why are all these channels popping up?
Yeah. In terms of educational content, which I think is specifically what you're talking about, that's how I've
Yeah.
learned everything. Absolutely. Like 90% of the stuff that I've learned, if I can't find it online, I go and I interview somebody. I'm like, how do you do this? But like 90% of the stuff that I need to know about building something, about creating something, about marketing something, about just the entire process of business, I can probably find it online, at least if I know what I'm looking for. Um, and the I created like it's the same reason that I created my show. I think is the reason that all of these are popping up. Like I was learning a ton of great stuff. I was talking to some of my friends, and they were like, "This is really really cool," right? And I was posting about it on social media, and I got a lot of
Mm-hmm.
traction. I got a lot of positive feedback from that because people couldn't learn this stuff elsewhere. So
Exactly.
that's just product market fit. I think it's just kind of the entrepreneurial process. People like products will come and solve a problem if there is a big problem being had, and there was a problem
Mm-hmm.
where information wasn't generally accessible, um,
Yeah.
or specific things were hard to find on the internet when a lot of other stuff was easy. Um, and so when somebody Googles something, they can't find something. They hear, okay, well that maybe I can make something there if I learn it, right? And then
Yeah.
they end up making same exact reason that I made it. I couldn't find something on the internet that I wanted to learn about. I thought it might be useful for other people. I created it. I got positive feedback, so I made more of it.
Mm-hmm.
So
Awesome.
hence a lot of this stuff is.
Well, they say sometimes the best way to learn is to teach.
Yeah, that's
Because
true.
then you've got to master the content to teach it to somebody else.
Exactly.
Yes.
Very interesting.
Max, do you have any specific mentors who have been really important to you over the course of your education, over the course of your amazing entrepreneurship building here?
Kind of, yeah. My dad is one for sure. He helps me and he kind of pushes me in different directions, and like a lot of the stuff that we talk about isn't necessarily his area of expertise, but he's still able to like just kind of help motivate me and things like that. So less content, more motivation, and making sure I'm on track
Yeah.
generally. Um, Other than that, when I was in college, I had a few mentors. I had a few, like all my professors of entrepreneurship, like basically the entire entrepreneurship program at the school at Carnegie Mellon where I went. All the professors were my mentors, and they would always I would regularly every
Amazing.
4-ish months I would sit down with one of them or all of them, and we'd do like a roast session, we called it. And I'd
Oh
be like,
yeah.
here are my ideas, like this is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to do, and they're like, that's
Here's
stupid.
my
Here's
idea.
why.
Now rip it apart.
Exactly, yeah. Now we're gonna absolutely rip it apart. I remember the last one, my senior year. I got in a room with all three of them, and I told everybody like, yeah, I'm going in for a roast session today. I got to lay down newspapers on the floor so the blood doesn't stain the um, but they're absolutely savage. They rip me apart. They're like, no, that's not going to work. Here's why. This is what you need to figure out. You have absolutely no understanding of how this works. Like they were just
Yeah.
very, very savage, but it was really helpful. And since then, in the past 2 years since I've graduated college, I haven't really had any mentors. It's mostly just been me kind of futzing. And I may have gotten a lot further with a mentor. I don't know. But I like having no idea what I'm doing and just kind of messing around. And
That's part of entrepreneurship too, though. You know,
I
you
think
got the
so.
mentors; they point you in the right direction. But after a little while, sometimes you need to flounder on your own.
That's awesome. Nice.
Yeah.
Would Jamie, do you want to do like one out of the box game?
Okay,
Maybe
that
fun.
sounds fun. So inside the box, here's the box, is there's a frog in here. It's like it smells like maple candies. I have no idea where this frog came from, but now there is a frog in there. And here are the cards.
Surprise.
Okay, so what we do is I flip through them, and Max, I'll give you the honor today. You're going to say stop. So I'm going to hold the cards up like this. Actually, I have to hold them down a little bit so that my camera can see them. Okay, so I'm just going to say, I'm going to start, and then you say stop, and then that's the card we're going to use. Okay, ready?
Yep.
And go.
Yeah.
Ooh. Okay. Ooh, okay, this is tricky. Okay, it says comment.
Comments. Hey, you know what? We were talking about social media, and we were just talking about how amazing it is to get more followers. What is the comments section like?
Yeah. So this kind of my initial idea is like on social media, whenever you're creating things, whenever you create content on the internet, no matter like what the forum, whether it's on Twitch or YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, the biggest thing that helps you find more followers and your content does well and it gets more views and everything else like that is engagement, right? So how many people like actually engage and do something on your content, whether they like it, they share it, they comment.
Of course.
And there are lots of businesses, agencies or otherwise, that help people or businesses or other groups creating content get more comments on their posts so that it's shared better, so that they have more engagement, so that the internet likes their content a bit more and they find more followers and more customers.
Right.
Yes.
That's the first thing that pops into my head in terms of like.
So can we, actually, and I'm a comment junkie. I always read the comments for pretty much everything I look at on the internet because it's so much fun to see what people write. Mm-hmm. So is there a business idea there?
Ooh, maybe a comment sifter.
A comment sifter, does that exist yet? Can we make one?
I'm sure that
Maybe it could be. One thing I've seen is like an influencer agency where you'll have other popular accounts on the platform work with you.
Yep,
and whenever somebody pays some money, they'll go and comment on that post, right? And then that post.
Right. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. Sometimes what I like to do is when I'm reading comments, let's say I bought some headphones. These are my really old headphones, and my other one's broke in half. So I'm using my old ones until the new ones show up. But I go through and I read all the comments about the products, and, formal and informal reviews.
Yes.
But I'm looking for certain kinds of information that for me really tell me whether or not yes or no this is for me. So it's almost like if we had some AI. So if I put in my specs, like I want headphones that do this kind of thing or this kind of comfort or this kind of dynamic range, then it would search through all the comments and come back with an opinion,
like a review reader. A review reader.
Like a review reader and a comment reader.
Reads through all your Amazon reviews, sort of compiles them together, and then sifts for the words that you're looking for, and then lets you know, okay, the top comments that came back with these 3 words in them were these. They were either 1-star, 3-star, or 5-star reviews, and you'd be able to get a little bit more information and have to obviously sift less.
Yeah, and even I love that because even those 1-star ones, I love reading 1 and 2-star reviews.
Those are my favorite.
You know, they're so good because they give you some information, but you also need to kind of compartmentalize it sometimes because it might just be an angry person.
That's nice. Yeah. The problem of like reviews in general, it's interesting you brought that up. The problem of reviews in general is huge for small businesses, for
Yeah.
restaurants, for groups like that, like Google reviews, because everybody will find a restaurant just by searching restaurants on Google, right? Or on Google Maps. So it ends up being really, really powerful to get those kinds of reviews and things like that, which are essentially just comments on a business. Um, that's really interesting. Yeah, it's a huge industry. It helps you find more popularity if people take you more seriously if there's more engagement on your stuff. So
Yeah.
Yes.
cool.
So there's probably all sorts of businesses that you could create around the whole idea of the comments and such. So cool. So we usually like to delve very deeply into the psyche of our guests and learn
Yes.
something about them. So
Get
So-
inside your head.
I pulled together a question here that it says, okay, so which sci-fi movie had the greatest psychological effect on you, Max?
Oh, there was one. Actually, no, there was one movie that I really liked when I was like 14. And I showed my friends, and I really enjoyed it. It was this animated movie called Summer Wars.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
haven't heard of it.
Very niche little movie, but it was decently popular. I think my mom found it. It was a wonderful little movie. It was it talked about this math genius kid who like just got himself into the situation. Basically, there was this big online world. There was this big online simulation world where everybody had jobs, everybody participated, everybody did their own kind of little things, and the entire economy and most of what went on in the world was on this big platform, and I think they called it Oz.
Yes, Oz, the virtual world connected to the internet.
Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah.
so we're headed there right now. This is
It's becoming real life. Ah.
Like that's what kind of blew me away because I was thinking like, oh, like this makes sense in terms of where the world is going. So it was very interesting.
well, it's so cool you bring that up actually, because this has come up in some of my circles. And, we're planning for the future and all that. And when I say stuff like, well, every business is going to have a shop in the VR world, the virtual world, and
Yep.
it'll be really soon. It's not like 10 years away. It's way sooner than that. And, you get some traditional business people, entrepreneurs just scratching their heads saying, absolutely not. But then, the same kind of person was saying the same things in the 80s, late 80s and early 90s when they said, we don't need a website. And, we're never
Yep.
going to sell anything online.
Yep.
So here we are again, history repeating itself.
It's kind of crazy to think that we might be able to say, like, thank you, COVID, for pushing us so hard, so fast into this. So we didn't have to, like, there were people who were dragging their feet on the digital side of things and really being like, oh, yeah, we'll get there. We'll make a 5-year plan, and in 5 years, we'll talk about it and we'll check it and we'll see if it'll work. And then COVID happened, and it was like, so that plan you were thinking of implementing in 5 years, it's now.
Yeah.
It's happening right now, immediately.
Yeah, get started overnight.
But it's really interesting.
Cool. So we're going to go and watch Summer Wars. I'm going to look it up.
Yes.
Check it out.
I enjoyed it a lot. Yeah, it was a good movie.
Okay, thanks for the recommendation. So, Virginia, have we
Yes.
covered what we hope to cover here with Max?
I have covered all of my questions, and
Cool.
I think we've covered all of your questions, and I'm just checking over this. Because we've talked about your show, we've talked about how to grow an audience, which is super important because we're in this digital shift, and our students are going to love hearing about that, especially knowing about the no code sites and the no code places to build things. That's going to
Yeah.
be extremely helpful. Things that we can hand out to our entrepreneurs and actually say, hey, if you cannot afford to have a website designer, try it yourself and see how it goes and build something.
Cool. Well, we'll keep watching your channel, Max, and
Yes.
we'll see where things are going. And then I'm sure you'll have all kinds of cool entrepreneurship projects in the future. We'll pay attention to all those too.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Cool.
Awesome. So, Max, we have this thing that we make our guests do. It's pointing to the like and subscribe buttons that are down at the bottom of the page. Excellent. So, could you please ask our viewers and yours to subscribe?
Love it.
Cool. Thanks again. Thanks everybody for watching, and as Max said, like and subscribe, and definitely add those comments because we're going to have our AI kind of going through them and studying them.
Awesome. Thanks so much for joining us.
All right, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for having me.
Bye.